Welcome to our session. Jerson and I, before we were walking up here, we didn't know what quite to expect, if it was going to be 2 full rows or a pretty good-sized crowd, so thank you. I guess we're amongst our people. Never know with census data if everybody's going to show up. I'm Ryan Dolan, and this is Jerson Vasquez, and we're both data dissemination specialists with the United States Census Bureau. And today's presentation will be on visualizing and preparing data, census data in Tableau. In our role as data dissemination specialists, the two of us are really data evangelists. We travel across the country. We both work from home. I work in Minneapolis. He's in Atlanta. The two of us focus primarily on visualizations and also a lot in training and education. Training and educating our stakeholders, any data users. That would be people ranging from small business owners to elected officials and nonprofit organizations. And lately, we've been doing a lot of work with Tableau, not only in creating and developing visualizations, but also educating some of our customers on how to better utilize census data within their work. You can see our contact information on there. And just a couple things, too. On your right will be my business card if you want to come up and grab one. And on your
right, their left.
Yeah, Jerson's is over there.
We're really good with numbers, but nothing else.
I have to do this. Yeah.
And just really to get kind of a feel for who we're talking to here, how many of you, show of hands, and we're census people, so we will count you, how many of you use census data pretty frequently? Wow.
Yay.
Nice. You're the ones. All right.
We don't usually get that in our sessions.
And just another quick question. How many of you go through census.gov and the tools located there?
Perfect.
And how many of you go through other means to get census data? Okay, so still interesting. Census.gov is a work in progress always. We have a lot of data and a lot of data points, so trying to corral all that and organize it can sometimes be challenging. But back to you, because that's another thing about us. He's going to have to rein me in every once in a while.
You'll see.
Yeah. Because I kind of like squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Anyway, we also like to collect data, so please, at the end of today's session, complete your survey so we can maybe make sure we're not wasting people's time when we do sessions like this. So we take that evaluation very seriously. And speaking of squirrel, because Jerson's going to do a lot of the talking today, so he likes to get off topic, as you can see. So if you can help me out, we have this little visual that we'll bring in once in a while if he's going too far. That's just to let Jerson know so I don't have to shout. So if he doesn't see it, just let him know, squirrel. You can just yell it. So today's presentation, we're just going to briefly walk through a basic introduction to census data and census geography. Following that, we're going to do a little exercise on downloading and preparing census data, and then ultimately bringing those into Tableau and doing a couple different scenarios. Following that, we're going to show you some pretty pictures of some work that we're doing and we've been doing, and then again, don't forget those critical evaluations. So, Jerson, it's all yours.
All right. Well, what he said, and since we had a good show of hands as far as people and familiarity apparently with census data and actually going to census.gov, we can kind of hit this fast forward button, and we're not going to get into a lot of details today. It's almost going to be like a cooking show where you're not going to see all the individual steps, but want to assure you that this is our job to walk people through those steps. So don't think that we're just going to show some slides, tell you about broad concepts, and not back it up. We can work with you, and we have a data dissemination branch, a whole staff across the nation that can sit with you one-on-one or on a WebEx or whatnot. If you're near a beach, we like to come out to you. Just throwing that out there. And so we will come and teach you how our best practices of cleaning data, how to pull it, how to get the best extracts. We're going to get into API and different things. And he started to go over to squirrel, so I think that's my cue to keep on this. So census data, we have a lot of it, billions of data cells. How many of you have heard of the decennial? To every 10 years there's a census. Yeah, going back to, anybody know? When was the first census conducted? You're 100 years off, 1790. Somebody said 1890?
Yeah.
1790, and back then, yeah, it was just over 3 million, 3 point something, I should know that. But we don't just work every 10 years. That's a misconception. It'd be a sweet job if we did. We don't have 9 years off in between. I'm sorry, that's the old census joke, but it still works for some of you. We have a lot of ongoing surveys and censuses. Census of government, The American Community Survey, have you heard of that one? That's a huge one. That's actually what most people look at as far as detailed data at the local level, because it is continuous now. It used to be the census long form. Now it's done every year. The next big release, by the way, mark your calendars, is ACS, American Community Survey, 5-year estimates in December. So that's going to be huge. That's going to be the 2016 release. And so you can go to zip code tabulation area, census tracts, and that's a good opportunity to go into geography.
Oh, I hit a click.
Somebody else needs the squirrel.
There we go.
Geo.
It went to a click. Oh, you put the clicks in there. There you
Thank
go.
you. There we go. So this is our geographic hierarchy. And how many of you have seen this before or understand it when it comes to census? Now, these are census geographies. They don't always make sense to people in the outside world. But what's important is, especially down that center line, is it nests neatly at the next level. Now, when we package this PowerPoint and upload it to the hub, it will have embedded links. So I see some of you taking pictures, but don't worry, we're going to embed resources so you can actually find this on our geo reference page on census.gov. We like to make our customers not have to work too hard to get to things. So that center line nests neatly, and when you're mapping, which we'll be doing a little bit later today, it's very important to get those clean maps and images. But it kind of is frustrating because how many of you know off the top of your head what census tract you live in? Yeah, I don't either.
I do.
Yeah, of course you do. But most people call us and ask us, and we get thousands of inquiries a year each, and they ask us for something like zip code. Zip code tabulation areas, they're great. And we actually, that's our rebuild of a zip code, and we have that as a tabulation area with census data associated on many levels. However, if you've ever tried to map zip codes, they go all over the place. It's like an anamorphic shape, and sometimes you need neat lines. So, of course, it all depends on what you need and want, and we can definitely help you on any front that you want to work with. But just keep that in mind. As we go on today, we're going to drill down in more of that center line. But I want to also mention something, and that is those other lines, everything you see on that screen has a shapefile. And what happened earlier this year with Tableau? 10.2 came out, and we had those shapefile, those spatial file formats, which for us, we were doing backflips. I mean, That's something that we have plenty of at the Census Bureau. How many of you have downloaded shapefiles from the Census Bureau? So any of these geographies, we have shapefiles for. So if you're doing tribal areas, we have that. If you're doing block groups, blocks, census tracts, so on and so forth, we have that. And that's a very powerful thing because you used to be able to work around it in the older versions of Tableau, but that was not too fun. And now it's really a plug-and-play process, so thank you for Tableau doing that. So a little bit more on census geography. We're going to teach you a direct way to get shapefiles from an actual data access, data extract standpoint. But also remember, and this will be embedded when we package this, the Census Geography page or geographic reference page, Tiger products, downloads of all state shapefiles, different levels, that's available through our website on census.gov. So that's a good resource, and we're going to show you another trick when we get to a little bit of the hands-on. How many of you are familiar with American FactFinder? And all of you love it, right? Yeah, that's okay. We get that a lot. We actually we're trying to reinvent the way we let people access our data, and that you can start to play with on data.census.gov. That's kind of a new portal. It's sort of in beta, and we're really trying to revolutionize the way you can access data. But for now, FactFinder is still a very powerful tool. It's much maligned. It's not always user-friendly. When we were creating it, we really were trying to have an open approach. But then the feedback we immediately got is like, how should I start? You know, we let you decide which way you're going to start, either through geo or topics or whatnot. It was a good effort, but we are working on it. But for now, it is still a great tool. And once you work with it a little bit, it's not too hard. And remember, we're a resource going forward. So if you ever run into trouble, we can jump on a webinar real quick or get out to you near the beach, of course, and we can work with you. And several of you in the room I've actually done that with, and I know Ryan has too. And we're real quick with the WebEx, and we can get on it and walk you through that. So on American FactFinder, we have those big data sets. This isn't everything we have, but just to give you an idea of what we'll be working with and focusing on today, we have the ACS, that American Community Survey, the decennial census, going back to 1790, although not all of that is online. Basically, you can go to Census 2000, and if you need older data for time series, things like that, talk to us. We can guide you that way too. Economic census. Very confusing to people, the economic census. They think, oh, that's where I find like median income and thing. No, no, no. Economic census is a census of businesses that employ people. Happens every year ending in 2 and 7. So actually, this is supposed to be an econ census year. And then the population estimates program. A lot of people get that decennial number, that every 10 year, and they keep using it. So 2010 census, people are still applying for grants and applying for funds based on that 2010 number, but our pop estimate program actually gives you the official federal number in those intercensual years. And a lot of people, that's what we do. We kind of guide them to, well, you might want to use this because it might make your argument a little stronger. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and a couple things to point out too about the American Community Survey. That's the survey that it started in 2005, as you can see on the screen here, and it replaced the old long form of the decennial census, which we used to do every 10 years with the long form. And that, if you can imagine how outdated data would be if you were looking at housing data from the 1990 census, and it was already 2000, and that was the most current data that you had. So it's a really fantastic product. It has, whereas the decennial census will have basic demographic and housing characteristics, the American Community Surveys, we're going to find educational attainment, housing units, and a whole bunch of other income and poverty status. So it's a really comprehensive table. It's a survey of about 3 million households annually, or about 250,000 households per month. So, and the other thing to keep in mind with the ACS, unlike the decennials, that it comes with a sampling error. So you need to take that into account when you're looking at data all the way down, like say at the census tract level, which is about 4,000 people. And we're going to do the example.
Okay. So now we're going to jump over, and we know this is not a hands-on workshop per se, but we do want to guide through just a basic access. And we're going to kind of go quick here, but again, we're a resource going forward, so we're happy to help you on an individual basis as well. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to go, our colleague right now, they're doing meetings in Massachusetts, so they actually asked us to help them out remotely while we were here. You know, we're working hard at this Tableau conference, but apparently we're not working hard enough, so they ask for things, and we always try to help our colleagues. So looking at Massachusetts, and the specific question that came in was on educational attainment. So we wanted to be able to, at the end of this process, end up with a pretty detailed census tract level map for the state of Massachusetts and bring in some elements, some data points around educational attainment and possibly age, median age, things like that. So what Ryan's doing, while I'm just jabbering up here, is basically going step by step to locate census tracts. The letters are really small.
Yep, and my eyes ain't so good.
And basically, very linear logic here on the list tab. Notice there are 4 tabs up there. Name is kind of cool because it has a search function. Address, that's really good if you don't know your census tract or don't know how it ties into census geography, and you can put in actual addresses. And then a map where you can actually draw polygons in different shapes and encompass an area that way. So there's a lot we can do with this. He's going through the direct route and ending up with all census tracts in Massachusetts. And then he's already gone forward. Thanks for jumping. And we're going to a star table. All that star means is it's a very popular table on American FactFinder when it comes to this particular topic. So we're going to S1501, which is educational attainment. And as he opens it up, you're going to see what you usually see when we see that ACS data, which is we're going to have the estimate, but in the spirit of transparency, we're going to have that MOE, that margin of error, right next to it. And that's, of course, we all know how MOEs and margin of errors work. And we also know that they're a pain in the rear when you're dealing with visualizations and trying to incorporate them and still be very responsible with the data. We've got some things to address that, and we'll get that. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So what we can do here is a couple different ways. One of the frustrations with FactFinder is the way people see it. And if you anticipate this screen being your solution, then it's frustrating. And that's what people have expressed to us. But in reality, change that thinking just a little bit. It's more of an extraction point. And once you kind of get your mind around that, FactFinder is actually not that bad. I'm not just saying that because I'm a census guy. I'm saying that because I use it all the time. So we can download from here, and that's a good extraction point. And when Ryan does that, you know, we've simplified this interface. He's going to select the use the data, which is what we're going to do because ultimately we want to visualize it in Tableau. And he's checked a couple of the boxes, or they're done by default, to make sure the identifiers are on the top row. And once he gets that, he's going to download it. And we've already done this just in case the internet connection wasn't great. We decided to do some of this behind the scenes. So are we going to jump to the table or go straight to the data source?
Go straight to the map.
Okay. So the other thing we want to do is, remember I mentioned that you could pull it from the geographic reference page, the shape files. At the end of this, remember, we want to end up with a map. But when you're actually in FactFinder, you can actually get the shapefile extract for the data that you're actually seeking right here. If you jump over to create a map, one of the actions along the top there.
See that right there?
And once you create a map, you're just going to click on pretty much any estimate, because we're not actually worried about the data in this case. We just want to get to the shapefile. So once he does that, it's going to verify that he wants to show a map. Now, American FactFinder does have basic thematic mapping capabilities, but there's no dynamic hover over. There's no, it's very static. And so to do more with this, we want to just export it. And once we're on the screen, we're not even worried about where the map is or isn't, but you can faintly see it there. We're going to download. Again, think of it as an extraction point. And once he downloads, you'll see that little radio button, or you might not see it, but I promise you it's up there, that says shapefile zip. And that's going to be critical because that's what we're going to play with in Tableau once we join the data. Okay. So again, that was done behind the scenes, and now we're going to jump over to Tableau. There's some steps that we're not showing here. There's some data cleanup that definitely has to happen. For a quick example of that is the first row is our unique codes for the variables, and that's not going to help in Tableau. That actually confuses the situation sometimes. So there is some data prep. We have some recorded webinars that already exist, and some we've done in conjunction with Tableau already. We'll be creating more and conducting more throughout this year, and we can even customize that to needs that you may have. So keep that in mind going forward. Again, our cards are up here on either speaker, and we can basically follow up with you on that. Because there's definitely some best practices, and if you've noticed, the way we name things, our naming conventions, are long-winded and very drawn out. A lot of dashes, a lot of semicolons, a lot of this, that. You don't want that in Tableau because ultimately you have a limited amount of real estate. And to search, like some of these tables have 50, 100 variables within it. If you don't clean up those data names and those categories, it can be a little bit cumbersome.
So as you can see on the table here, this is an example of how we've edited a table that we've downloaded straight from American FactFinder. So we've taken all that first header row as you saw me do while Jerson was speaking. We've also, because there's a ton of variables in this table, as a lot of our tables have, we've reduced really what we don't need because you don't really always want to sort through the measures on your Tableau dashboard or your Tableau worksheet as you're creating. So we knew that we were only going to take these key variables for this example. In this case, we took high school education and bachelor's degree for the population 25 and older. Did some renaming a little bit, did some cleaning up, but made sure we kept the items that are necessary, which we're going to cover in just a moment.
And so I believe now we're going to jump right into Tableau and take a look at that data source as it came in. And Ryan, since you built this,
sure,
if you don't mind walking them through how you joined it and where we're at.
Absolutely. So I downloaded the shapefile, as you can see here. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to play with shapefiles from Census, but you can just see the connection where I downloaded it. You actually need to make sure that you keep all of the information in the same folder. Oops. Okay. Don't you just love that? So you can see where the file is right there, and you just select the one that's visible, which is the one that ends at .shp. So you would connect to that by just clicking Add Spatial File. It works pretty simply. And then what you need to do is create a join. I already did this in advance because once you do that secondary join, it's hard to see the full table, so that's why we did it this way. Generally, from the shapefile, in all cases, when you download it from American FactFinder, and trust me, it's a little different when you get it from Tiger, but if you download it from American FactFinder, you want to match GeoID with ID. That's within your column, your first left column on every single file from American FactFinder. So that's a very simple process, and what I did here is I took data from the American Community Survey, and what I also did is, what's nice about Tableau in these joins is that you can also join data from the decennial census. So we brought in a table from the 2010 census for Massachusetts for all census tracts, and we also linked that up, GeoID to ID, very easily, and we created one nice linear table here. So from there, let's just say I want to create a quick map. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the shapefile under Measures and just double-click Geometry, and it's going to pop up all of the shapes. How many of you tried to do this before 10.2 and were very successful with it?
Brave souls.
And then from there, it's important, and this is something a lot of people forget, is you just need to put the geography name in, and so that pops in. And then from after that, I'm just going to want to maybe visualize median age on color. So I'll drag that in, and I have median age. And the one thing to keep in mind when you're working with smaller sub-county geographic levels like census tracts is you'll want to probably edit the color a little bit, because we have a lot of census tracts actually that have a population of 0. So you can either remove the null values, which is one option, or you can just create a different anchor like I did here. I started at 20. So that's something to keep in mind. It initially defaults to 0 on all of ours because there's at least going to be one in a whole state that doesn't have a population. So that's just one tip just to make your visualization pop a little bit better. And then the other thing I wanted to bring in is on here I'm going to bring in the bachelor's degree. So I'm going to pull that in on detail, and you'll see in my tooltip now I have the population and the bachelor's degree. And then I'm going to want to pull in the margin of error for that same variable and also put that right on the tooltip or detail. And you'll see my tooltip will have that. There's some other options you can actually play with too with mapping and with shapefiles. So let's just say I wanted to visualize on color, I have median age, but maybe I want to do percent with bachelor's degree on size. So there's another really neat visualization you can do. What? Yeah. So you can do that. So there's a lot of different options you have with the shapefiles and the different visualizations here when you download data. I've actually done a complete version of this, which I'd like to show you as well. And that this one here, we've modified the tooltip because we're very particular in how our data appears. So we want to make sure that the margin of error is displayed properly and that we've sourced it properly as well. So as you can see, I've just coded the tooltip, and as you hover through, so very quickly you're able to create analysis, add some filters in. Justin and I have done a ton of webinars, and we've had folks with no Tableau experience publishing stuff on Public as county commissioners and county planners within 30 minutes of our webinar. So shapefiles is really an awesome invention, not invention, but addition to Tableau. And just keep in mind, there's a lot of data at school districts. There's a lot of data at many other geographic levels that you can now visualize really simply. No, Justin?
All right. So that's just a quick example, and you can see that when you've done some of the legwork, but even if you had to go through every step, you can do something like that, honestly, in less than an hour, 30 to 45 minutes, once you just familiarize yourself with your product, with the data. I mean, you've heard it throughout this conference. It's wrangling that data, it's cleaning it and making it make sense, and always keep that end goal in mind. At least that's what we find really helps us when we're creating our visualizations. Now, another thing, we've looked at FactFinder, and that's one way to extract. How many of you have used census.gov/developers, that page, for the API access? Very few brave souls in this case. This is another site, much like FactFinder, and the way we put our API out there, it's not always easy, but kind of to show you the other side of that, we do have billions of data cells, millions of variables. And so trying to organize that, we're still working on it. And if any of you have suggestions, please email us, because we're constantly trying to find a better way to present our data so more people will take it in, digest it, and hopefully create really cool things with it. But the API, really helpful. You request a key on census.gov/developers, and it comes to you pretty quickly via email. And it's a good starting ground to kind of play with this API data. Now, one of the more powerful features in this, and actually we're going to look at some of the variables, in this case, from American Community Survey, Ryan's kind of scrolling down, looking at 5-year data in this case. Once he clicks on that, it's going to give you a description of the data set. It's going to give you example calls, geographic levels available, different information that of course you're going to need to understand before you proceed and start playing with the API and ultimately creating something of your own. Do we want to go to some of the variables just to kind of get a look?
Oh, wrong one. There you go. Oh, oh, HTML, there we go.
There you go. So, you know, and unfortunately, this is where we need some help, and so I'm putting it back on you guys, because as this loads up, and there's probably hundreds of thousands of things right here in this particular data set, I mean, you really have to resort, if you don't know the data inside and out, like Ryan and I do, you have to resort to Control F and find. And it can be very frustrating. A lot of times what we end up doing is we look it up on FactFinder and then relate it back. Like when we're at hackathons and things like that, that's how we guide it. It's not the best. A bunch of you are giving me like these sideways eyes. Sorry, we are working on it. But again, I'm putting it back on you guys. Help us with this. Help us help you. You know, we would love to get a better navigation. Maybe somebody can create a Tableau viz to help us through this. Just an idea. So one good thing, though, of putting up with all this kind of Control F is you can kind of create your own custom extract, which is the whole point. And that's what we've done a lot of times. And do we have a sample call?
Well, no. One thing to point out, just what you're looking at here, you'll notice these variable IDs on the left-hand side. If you get to this page on your own, because we're all pretty smart people in this room, the one ending in M, anybody have an idea what that is? Yes, margin of error. E is estimate. You'll see in other types of tables, you'll see PE, PM, that'd be percent estimate, percent margin. So just kind of, you know, it's very logical. And actually these numbers mean something. So if you're on an American FactFinder table, just this one here would be B6010PR. You can type that into American FactFinder, and what you would do is you would just count down, if you have time, 52 rows, and you would get margin of error for foreign-born with income, 35,000 to 49.99, and that's what that means, just if you're wondering. And so what we do is we take these variables one by one and construct an API call, which we're going to show you here. Yeah, you can kind of see it in the URL. Not everybody knows you can do this with an API call. Once you have your key, you craft your call, and you just put it in your URL, and you get this. And you can save that as a CSV really easily with Chrome. I've already done it once here. You just file, save page as. You want to make sure you don't save it as a JSON in this case, because you just want to create a CSV extract and just type .csv at the end.
And if you're familiar with FIPS codes, basically those geographic codes, you know, this is basically you find in the structure where the state FIPS code is and perhaps the other level of geography you're dealing with, and then you can craft it. And we did this for every state, and it was a tedious process to extract it because we did have a lot of variables for this next visualization that we're going to feature. But it was important because this was something where another agency was asking for our help to create a visualization that could help their workers focus on different things within this fedreach.org space. And so jumping over to that.
Keep an eye on the picture, and this is why the color scheme
Yeah,
is this
we
way.
didn't love the colors. I guess it's fall or autumn. I don't know what we're calling it now. But basically, that pumpkin spice color just threw up all over the page there. But hey, we serve our customers. They want that color. The beauty of Tableau is, thanks to help we got from different people in Tableau. Hey, Jenny. Basically, custom colors, custom palettes, easy to do, and we had a lot of fun with that. But yes, this color wasn't our first choice, but we're sensitive to the customer needs. Okay. This is completely Tableau, and this is a way we like to do things, Ryan and I, because we like the visual interface, the visual navigation. Now, there are other options. You can change the map view in this case, because some people, you know, obviously, how do you find DC there? You know, that's tough, so if you change the map view to DC right there, or Alaska, you know, you can start with continental US, you can go to different things. And this comes from experience with customers and just working a lot with data inquiries. We used to just have tables at our disposal, and we love working with people that way, but this really has given us a different pathway to create visuals to respond to customer needs, and it's great.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, and so with this one, what we've done here, we were asked to, on one sheet, put 50 variables going all the way down to the census tract level. That's a big task. So we're going to kind of show you some of the things we've done that we think are best practices when you're dealing with sample data and demographic data. Like you'll see here as you hover over all of these, we magically got, you know, when you're using measure names and measure values, we got the estimate and the margin of error in there, which is requires some wrangling when you're downloading our tables. So we found some best practices, and that's one of the ways the API is really great. Previously, we said, the E and the M variables, download them separately. And we'll talk about why in a second, but I'm sure you can kind of imagine. Then you would work with that later. This one we have visualized on this page. I think about 20 or so variables on each page, but we've provided the different ways to change the map, which you can see by different variables and characteristics, including like total population, unemployed percentage. Then we also have a parameter set here, which pops out different sets of categories. So if you want to do different analysis on the charts and the graphs, or sorry, the table and the graphs in there too. So we have demographics, health and family. These are preset by our client that works for HUD. And you see that all of these are on here. And then again, as you hover over each state, those variables will change. So you can set your parameters and do that. We're in Nevada. So if I click into Nevada, what you can actually do here is the same thing we described before. Has all of that, has the tooltips, have the hover, and it's sourced.
And this is what we talk about when we're that visual interface and navigation. Click down on a state, and you end up with the counties. Mm-hmm. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, and then one other thing because the federal government, we're not always all siloed. This FedReach project is a partnership of a couple of agencies, and this is our part to it, is to develop this tool for just internal workers that are going to be doing outreach in selected counties. But what they wanted that we weren't able to provide in this platform as comprehensive as they wanted economic data. And we have a tool called Census Business Builders. Anybody ever seen that? Oh, it's a fantastic tool, and you need to try it. It's cool. It's pretty new. But we just coded a hyperlink in the tooltips with the URL action. And for every county now, we have economic data. And you'll see this pop up. So this would be for Clark County, Nevada, which is where we're at. And it has a comprehensive report of all of the business activity, economic activity in Clark County. And you can look at a more detailed report. So we have that for every single county in the nation, programmed into Tableau just by using, because most of our links are programmed with the FIPS code. So you can just quickly throw the FIPS code in there, and it actually is a pretty simple process to create that in Tableau.
Yeah, and leaving those breadcrumbs, those links, very important for us at the Census Bureau, because again, we have so much data points, so many things and products that a lot of times, even as great and robust as a visualization can be, we can't fit everything on a page and still make it look nice. So the ability to put that link and code it real quickly to all 3,000 plus counties in the nation is really helpful, and it's a resource for the customer going forward. In the next example, which you want to finish up on this first? Or?
Sure. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of a very similar process. We went from state to county to census tract. We now got everything is the same as it was before, the same filters and parameters. But this has all 73,000 census tracts in the nation, so you can imagine the file's quite big now. Anybody know how I made it a lot bigger? Anybody have a guess? How did I get the margin of error from our cross tab to join estimate and margin? Anybody have any idea? Well, I used Tableau's pivot feature, which I'm going to show you the data source here from the. I got to expand that up. I got to get out of full screen. Yeah, I'm in presentation mode.
So yeah, at the Census Bureau, of course, we try to be good data shepherds. So that includes being transparent about those margin of errors. How you use your data in your visualizations, obviously that's up to you. But for us, especially as you zoom down in geographic level to census tracts, and an estimate might be 40 and 1, but the plus or minus might be 120. We want to be responsible with that data and make sure that the margins of errors are up front, because as you zoom in, it can fluctuate wildly.
So the reason that I brought this up is for us, it's very important for us to be able to associate the margin of error with an estimate. And so when you're building a bar chart, for example, you click on the measure names. It doesn't know that the column next to it, the margin of error, is associated together. So we figured a workaround, but it's a lengthy workaround. In this case, where we have already about 73,000 census tracts, well, we figured out that the best way for us to do it would be to pivot it. So you see, this is what the table would normally look like, cross-tabbed with each independent variable as a column. We just pivoted all 50 for every state, county, and census tract in the nation. in this, and you'll see I was able to do that here. So now when we create our tables, it's just measure names and measure values. And Tableau actually does it very well. The only thing is for us is sometimes it feels like it's in the blind because we went from about 75,000 census tracts to 4 million rows just by pivoting it, so make sure that it all lined up together. But if you have ever need to do that, that's one of the tips we wanted to share with you about this visualization. Cool. Yes.
Nah, well.
Yes.
All right.
Fedreach.org. Yep.
Sorry, I forgot.
Fedreach.org. I can show you.
Did he make it live?
Yeah.
Okay,
well, it's
cool.
on Tableau Public Live.
Okay. And the question was, is it on Tableau Public? So in case you didn't hear it.
So we just really wanted to create a tool that was easy for people to access data. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this. Jerson actually created something very similar to this. We won the Census Bureau's Visathon back in April. That kind of, everybody wanted a piece of it, so then it turned into this for HUD, I guess. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We really, we don't just use at Census Bureau, we don't just use Tableau for these kind of visualizations. This is actually very new. I think to date we've only released to the public about 3. But we've been actually Tableau users inside the agency for quite some time because we actually do a lot of internal BI. So this is something that's still very new to us. So we're trying to, and we're always looking for assistance. If you have any ideas for best practices, because this is still a very new landscape for us, especially with the shapefiles, we're trying to innovate as much as possible, especially given the fact that we have the 2020 census coming up right around the corner. So there's going to be a lot more eyes on us than normal.
And speaking of the 2020 census, we did enter a visualization in our census-wide Visathon, and it was based on our prior experience as partnership specialists leading up to the 2010 census. Partnership specialists basically kind of like the town crier for the census is coming. It's important, especially to data users, very important to get that data right once every 10 years and then build off of that because it does become the foundation statistic for so many other things. So with that in mind, we thought, okay, back when we were partnership specialists, before we got into this data gig and data visualization stuff, what tool would have helped us in really kind of trying to work with community members? And partnership specialists are tasked, and they're still tasked, we're hiring them now in many cases, to work with nonprofits, faith-based leaders, all sorts of organizations across the gamut, right? And really engage them in conversation as to why data is important in their community. New roads, new schools, hospitals, jobs, so on and so forth. Basically, data evangelist. And one tool that we came up with is we have this predictive score. It's called a low response score that was built, a formula was built not that long ago, a few years back. And we have this thing called the planning database, which is a great resource and has a lot of data in it. What is it, like 100 megs CSV, but it's loaded for every census tract or even block group level. So we were trying to visualize that in a way that we could get that LRS, that low response score, and what that predictive score tells you is basically areas that are less likely to engage in survey response, or in this case, in census response. So with this predictive score, we wanted to input it into a visualization that was visually navigable and basically give a resource to a partnership specialist working with the local mayor, working with the county commissioner, that gives you also some of that race and ethnicity, different data points on the table that you see around it. And also language spoken was big for us as well, because if you're not speaking the right language, it's difficult to engage. And we run into that a lot when we're ramping up for decennial operations. So in this case, Ryan has started to jump into things. Again, like the FedReach project, we click on a state, we go down to the counties, and then from counties, we can click on that and end up in the census tract. Remember we mentioned that the breadcrumbs, leaving that link within the tooltip, something important. Well, here's another aspect that really matters at the local level when dealing with your mayor or city hall or councilman or whoever, is they know their area and community anecdotally, and sometimes statistically, but more so anecdotally, this is my neighborhood, I know it type of thing. But what does the data say? Because sometimes it's two different stories. So we wanted a resource beyond just what you see on this visualization. So when you click on that narrative profile link, much like the Census Business Builder in FedReach, this takes you to kind of already curated data with already some visuals in it, kind of old-fashioned, but still very informative, that you can basically, through that one click, get a lot of information. And remember, this is for 73,000 plus census tracts that are now coded by simply knowing how to write into hyperlink code on Tableau for all of it.
It's very simple.
And this is something that we've used to great success. And as you see on this map, what it's showing is the color coding, that kind of burnt orange. The darker that color, the higher the low response score, so the less likely they are to engage. Now, that's one variable, but there's a lot of variables you can pull in. Really, you know, think about whatever data points that you care about that are driving your decisions locally, and imagine if you can express it in a visual format. And I'll give you an example that's near and dear to my heart. In Gwinnett County, Georgia. Anybody from Gwinnett? No? Just me. Although I saw in the visualization in Data Village that Atlanta has a lot of peeps. Any Atlanta people here? Yes. Minneapolis people? All right, got a few. Subdued crowd today. So.
Squirrel.
Yeah, sorry. Now, where was I going? Now I lost my train of thought.
You were going to show an example in Atlanta.
Oh, yes. One that's near and dear to my heart. Gwinnett County, Georgia. We created a visualization. It was a simple one, much simpler than this. And the question was about hearing impairments, or people who have difficulty hearing. Well, first step in our job as data evangelists, so to speak, is people a lot of times don't even know we collect on that. But the ACS, the American Community Survey, does have disability statistics, and that's one of the categories. So using our ACS tables and some mapping functions, we were able to create basically a heat map or a thematic map that showed higher concentrations by census tracts in Gwinnett County, Georgia, of those with hearing loss or hearing impairment. Well, what did that lead to? And this is a great point of how data can be impactful, is they applied for a grant and got it, received it, for bed shaker alarms. I didn't know what a bed shaker alarm was, but I learned, and I love this job because I learned so much. But it's basically, if you can't hear an audible alarm, there's bed shaker alarms to wake you up if there's a fire in your house. So they got the grant, they installed it in many households where they saw that the need was prevalent, and to date they have 56 confirmed saves. So you talk about data, and there's a lot of reasons to use it. Sometimes it's for business, retail, whatnot, but sometimes it actually saves lives. So keep that in mind going forward, and take a look at your data, see how you can take it to the next level.
Great. Well, that's what we have for you today. I'm going to get some...
And I think we're right on time for questions, perhaps?
Anybody have any questions? Great. Sir?
Yes, sir.
In addition to building one of those calls with an API, isn't it true you can also just take the bookmarks that you can create straight into the ACS and reconstruct those so you can tack additional
The deep links.
and sort of create a custom extract?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's right through... Yep.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned deep linking at the Census Bureau. That's what we call it internally. But it's very good if you're not doing this already, which I'm sure you are, to look at what else is out there. The blogs that you mentioned, sir. You know, we've looked through a lot of blogs. We've emailed people, maybe in this room, saying, "Hey, we're trying to figure this out." And many of you are gracious in the Tableau community and feedback to us, and we really appreciate that. We check out the community forums and threads. We check out Tableau Public quite a bit to see what's been done, and sometimes to see what's not been done, because we were the only idiots foolish enough to try to tackle all census tracts that I could tell through many searches of Tableau Public. And actually, the Tableau Public person actually told us, what did she say when we said we wanted to do that? She said, you're insane.
Yeah,
but
because we did it in 3 days.
Well, we try to break things. Yeah. That's what we try to do. And we pulled all-nighters to try to win this Visathon, but it wasn't about winning it. It was about trying to propel the agency forward in a visual manner. Yeah. We love visuals, but we have too many of the static ones, and we want to get more dynamic things going, and I think you do too. Go ahead.
And one of the things that's really good about creating the API is that, so for example, that fedreach.org project, or the other one we did for the Visathon that you saw with the black background, our data exists in, basically tabulation formats, or we just have these tabs, like, so it'd be an educational attainment tab, or CSV that you would download. What's nice about this is that you can really cherry pick between a bunch of tables when you create the API call. But there is a problem there. A couple of times, Yersin and I, when we've done this, we've realized we were one letter off or one number off, and we had the absolute wrong data in the visualization. And when you're dealing with 50 or 60, and you're dealing with, if you want to download, we have a limit in how much you can download from the API at once. So you need to do state by state for every census tract. So you have to do 50 downloads. So we're looking at ways to try to automate this and make it a little better. But I found that it would be so much harder for me to go download 6 or 7 tables from American FactFinder to create the extract and then modify each one of those and do that 50 times over, rather than just pull the variables that I need and then inspect for error later.
And we do try to break things. And the reason is because if you want to fix something, you got to find out what its threshold is to be broken. And we take that seriously at the Census Bureau. We're really trying to advocate at the end of the day for customers, users, user experiences. So if you have difficulties or success stories, we like those too, share it with us, because we do advocate in DC and we go quite often. It's something that we can start to build a better product and better pathways to our data, because we do have a lot of it. And we want it to be utilized in thoughtful and intelligent manners in all sorts of things. I think Ryan has a goal, it's lofty, but to really see census data in all Tableau dashboards, even if it's just backdrop statistics, yep. Because there is something to be said for that. And we know, because in our current function as data dissemination specialists, we have had thousands upon thousands of inquiries. And the littlest thing, whether it's a bed shaker alarm, whether it's a community group trying to get more parks in their area, based on age data or different services for different people, those things are important and they do add up. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Do you know anything about the web data portal? Somebody developed one.
Yes.
In Tableau.
The web data connector?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we've played with that a little bit.
Yeah, it's good. It's a little bit, it's got limited variables and it's got certain selections, and we played with it a little bit. Honestly, what I did, and going back to advocating internally, I saw that and I said, we need to create an official one.
Yep.
And so you have the same thinking. So when those things are pointed out to us, that's what we do. And actually, I got that email 2 days ago. Yep. So I was really advocating this week to really say, hey, we need to have our own Census Bureau data connector. And we're looking at that. And we have some meetings with Tableau, including
coming up, yeah.
Management, to really try to look at better ways to make our data more plug and play within the platform.
The one that was out there worked
yeah.
in a limited way, but it worked.
Yes.
Works really well. Yeah.
Was that the one from I Love Big Bites? Or?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works really well.
Not endorsing anything, but just throwing it out there. Government folks. Yes, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Oh, it's not live yet.
Oh yeah, he emailed our point of contact today. He was making some updates to it this week, so we're about to get it up, but thank you.
This one is. So the thing is if I were to go to, I wonder if I'm still signed in. I think I'm signed in on Safari, actually. Let me check.
So we're working on getting more out there, and the way we would like to do it, is when we go and put them up, we want to make the workbook downloadable and things, because we're not proprietary. Data to the people. We're all about that as well. So we're really trying to do that. Now, on the other side, turn off the cameras for a second. We're in government. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of protocol. Whenever we want to publish something, every subject matter expert at the Census Bureau apparently has to look at it first. So it's sorry, director, I'm sorry, but either way. We're working on that, and since Tableau is still relatively new, and what we're doing with Tableau, with census data, is new inside the agency, it's some growing pains. But again, you guys want it, we take that back and say, look, you become like 100 people. 100 people were demanding that we have more things public. I embellish, but that's okay, because ultimately we are customer-centric, we are customer-focused, and if our data is not out there, then quite frankly, people can advocate to get rid of our data, and some people do. So we'd like to get it out there more.
And to follow up, if you want me to send you a link to the viz, come up and grab a card.
That's his trick. He wants to beat me in cards.
I'm winning. Right now, we're exploring, because we're exploring a way to get an actual channel for us. So that's probably going to be coming shortly. I think, like I said, our first public visualizations beside our internal email marketing and customer contact visualizations that we have had in Tableau for a while, Our first one just actually launched in September. So this is a very new platform for us. So that's why, like what Jerson said, it's a long process for anything to get out the door. Because there's a lot of review that has to go through. Because when you pivot a table, that changes how it was initially released. So there's some review process that we have. So this one's about ready to be there. The other one that we showed you with the black background is probably going to be released with American Community Survey 2016 5-year data, and that'll be in the first part of December. So if you just come grab our cards, or and I'm sure that we've been talking with folks at Tableau Public, they'll be promoting it for us as well, because we think it's a really good partnership and looking at our data in that platform.
And so since you asked about it, that's 200 people who demanded that we put more on public, so we'll keep that running tally. I'm good at counting. I work with the Census Bureau. Yes, sir. Huh?
You can use the margin of error.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Plus or minus 250.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Migration tracker, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't think that data is always available by the same variables, like income levels or education or like origin or nationality. It would be awesome to have it by income or pegged to levels of SPL or something like that.
Okay.
For nonprofits that are doing work in poverty, hunger, food insecurity, we want to know who's moving out.
Yeah.
Kind of get at the why.
And, yeah, and you're talking basically wish list data. What you wish was out there. You can take my card, not his, and send me an email on that. And basically, we love to get wish list data because, again, we advocate for you. We can't always get it done. We're just too lowly census employee. But we will try, and you have my promise on that. Good point. And have you looked at the selected population tables that just came out? That can break down, basically go into specific ancestry or subgroups like origin groups and Hispanics, ancestry like, sub-Saharan African, things like that. You can actually, it's already cross-tabulated. It's limited because the sample size has to be big enough, but not a lot of people know about that. But these SPTs, these select population tables, everything's acronyms in government, sorry, are really helpful. So I can walk you through that as well if you take my card, not his.
Well, one thing too, one thing that I like to do now with Tableau that we've been working with it so much is take two variables and visualize them together. You won't have that crosstab like that you're looking for, but if you take those two variables we spoke of, if we have them at the same geographic level independently, maybe not stratified by, like say the demographic characteristic by the income characteristic that you're looking for, that's maybe one thing I've seen some folks do, and that's what, like in this FedReach one, we've done that, giving people the option to, make the comparison visually here with, this one's unemployed, but I want to compare below poverty with, percent with health coverage. And so I'm looking at by state, and I do it all the way down to those geographic levels too. So that's one option too.
Yeah, and we're, I know everybody's excited to get out of here and do a little data night out tonight. We'll be hanging around. We'll be the ones not drinking because we're government workers. And we don't drink ever, but why are you laughing? But we're gonna hang out here for a bit or out in the hallway. If there are more questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Don't hesitate to take either of our cards. We work together on a lot of these things, but if you have something that's specific to cold weatherland, Minnesota and stuff, this guy's the guy. Hispanic population groups, LGBT specialization, tribal areas. He helped build our tribal app on census.gov. So we have different specialties between us, and we work together with the rest of our subject matter experts at headquarters. So if we don't know the answer, we will say we don't know the answer, but we'll try to get you to the right person. Thank you so much for your attention.
One more thing too, and thank you Tableau for hosting us and letting us come. Very appreciative. Any opportunity we get to showcase our data, we're excited to do. And thank you everyone for coming, and please be in contact with us. We're going to be doing a webinar series probably over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be announcing that. So if you want information about that, come and grab a card. We're going to do a lot more instructionals in detail on American FactFinder, on integrating into Tableau, because in 45 minutes there's not much you can do. And then also those API calls, because that's been a pretty popular one lately that folks are wanting to know how to create their own extract, a custom extract, rather than just using the preset tabulations that we have in FactFinder. So stay tuned and get in touch with us. We'd be glad to grow our network a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.